Hey fam, welcome or welcome back. Tisha here, back for another segment of It's Getting Real, a place where we explore the stories behind true tragic crimes. Today, we're diving into this jaw dropping true crime documentary from Netflix called Abducted in Plain Sight. Now, this is something a little different because I normally try not to blame people when it comes to these crime stories. But today, I am not only side eyeing, but I am blaming the adults in this family, the adults that surround this family. This is a story that is so bizarre to me, so twisted that you might think when you're listening to this that I made this up, but I didn't. We're talking about manipulation, grooming, and conspiracies involving aliens, and not one, but two kidnappings, all centered around one innocent, because I want to make that clear. She was an innocent 12-year-old girl named Jan Broberg. We begin this whole series because it's actually one episode that I saw. We begin this whole story, we'll say, with of the voice of a creep saying, she was a beautiful little girl, very bright and very lively. She smiled brightly at me, and as she smiled, there were definite dimples in both cheeks. My heart went out to her. I walked up to her, put my arm around her, and drew her close to me. Held her tight. She looked up at me, her eyes beaming, and I knew that I had found the little girl I was searching for. This is a grown behind man making this statement on a recording talking about this beautiful young lady that you see on my screen. So our story begins in the 1970s in Pocatello, Idaho, a small, quiet town. We're talking about a population at that time of about 40,000 people in the 70s where the Broberg family lived. Bob and Mary Ann Broberg were devout Mormons raising their three daughters, Jan, Karen, and Susan. Jan is their eldest daughter, described as an outgoing, beautiful firecracker that was a great older sister. The family lived in the type of community where you didn't lock your doors. They were close, they trusted easily. Bob, the father, is a florist, and Mary Ann, the mom, is a stay at home mom. The family were devout members, as I said, they were Mormons of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. There, while attending choir rehearsal, Mary Ann couldn't help but notice this handsome gentleman. This is when enters Robert Bertold, or as they call him, B. The year is 1972. Robert is a husband and father of five. Now, Marianne becomes close to Robert's wife, and her husband Bob becomes close to Robert. He quickly becomes family. He has kids around the same age. He came across as kind and friendly and charming and helpful. The man was always around. So, over the next few months, the family spent a lot of time together to the point where Jan, as you see here, considered him to be like a second father, saying even in current day that back then, one of the things that she remembers most is that she felt safe with him. So he made routine visits every night to talk and to play games. And I'm not talking about just playing games with the adults, but to play games with the children. Jan specifically. Now, this is weird to me. Every night when you have your own family of five and a wife, why are you really there? Because you see, a lot of times abductions and things of that nature occur with people that you know. So if I were a mom in that situation, if I were a parent in that situation, would have kind of been keeping an eye on him, right? But they're trusting people. Even weirder is that He had all types of pet names for Jan, but the one that he utilized most and the one that she remembered hearing from him most was Dolly. The man would eventually make a recording about loving Dolly and kissing Dolly and how no man could love her more. Sick, sick. So B isn't just friendly. B is also calculating. He is spending more and more time with Jan. The parents notice, they don't like it, but they do nothing to stop it. This man zeroed in on Jan almost immediately, building a special relationship with her. And I don't know if you can see it because it's blurred because the pictures are older pictures. But if you notice, look at his hand placement. Now, I hate to do this because you don't want to feel like everything is inappropriate, but this is not her father with his hand wrapped around her waist like this, pulling her in. This is the gentleman that they've met a few years ago. So the parents notice that he spends a lot of attention or has a lot of his attention pointed towards Jan, and they do nothing. But he continues to be involved with her and take her out and buy her gifts and give her additional attention. He is basically, in my opinion, grooming her under the family's nose. Not only the daughter, but the parents as well. He purposely struck up a close friendship with Bob, an emotional and then later physical relationship with Marianne. We'll get to it. This web of manipulation gave him complete access to Jan. So on October 17th, 1974, B calls Mary Ann and says that he wants to take Jan horseback riding, or should I said he's taking her horseback riding. Her mom tries to say, like, I'm not sure she'll be able to go. She has piano lessons. That's important. Da 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 da. He tells her, don't worry about it. I'll pick her up from piano lessons. Why her? Why just her? Why not other kids? What is it about her that you're just taking her and you're not bringing your own children to do horse lessons or the other kids in the Broberg household? So he picks her up from piano lessons. That is on a Thursday. He gives her a so-called allergy pill and he never brings her back home. Before I forget, according to the FBI, in January 1974, Robert was reprimanded by the High Council of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints because of his involvement with another young girl. That, to me, should have been reported to police. Robert is referred to a therapist that doesn't have a license, and in those sessions he's given recordings, and he is told as part of his therapy that he has to spend time alone with Bob and Marianne's young daughters. Rather convenient, right? So Jan's father said that he didn't really mind, that to him it was something that, maybe he could go and visit her after, she went to bed. That would be okay. And what ended up happening is that after this happened, while he was with her, she would be touched. He let that man lay by their daughter in bed and he would touch that little girl. And she didn't have knowledge of it most of the time because he had given her an allergy pill, which was something else that put her to sleep. So I don't buy you saying you're uncomfortable with the situation and you're allowing this person to keep coming into your home and being alone with your child. As the adults in this, they should have never allowed it to happen. Now, according to court transcripts, Robert slept in Jan's bed for 4 times a week. Let me not say slept, laid in Jan's bed for 4 times a week for 6 months. And then she was taken. That is 6 months of that child being given sleepy medicine. That is 6 months of her being harmed while she slept. That is 6 months of her innocence being taken, and what was supposed to be her safe place, which is her home, was no longer her safe space. So pardon me if we're saying in this documentary that the family was so naive and the parents were so naive, blah, blah, blah. I'm not buying it. I'm not going for the whole naive thing when you have a situation where this young lady is being groomed. As I said, Jan is supposed to be out riding, but it ends up getting late at night. It's 9 o'clock, and Marianne's child, Jan, still isn't home. B, that's the wife, B, no, B's wife, excuse me, y'all, Gail, the wife of Robert, comes over and she's panicking a little bit. Now, rather than calling the police, they wait 2 days to make a call. Who in their right mind is going to do that? I worry when my child is an hour late coming home from work. And here you are with your minor daughter who is 12 and is missing. You would think that they would at least call around to hospitals or things of that nature to make sure they're safe, but they didn't. So on Saturday, they call the FBI and they are closed for the weekend. She's instructed, if this is emergency, then call this number. And rather than calling that number, the mom waits some more. Now, she'll say it's because she didn't think anything was wrong and that she didn't want to cause a fuss, but I don't think that that's what happened. I think that they hesitated to call the police because B had compromised them all. He had secrets on both parents, and they were paralyzed, in my opinion, with fear and shame. Let's jump back to fall of 1972, 2 years before the kidnapping. Marianne is bringing Robert lunch at his furniture store. He's flirting with Marianne and complimenting her body and her beauty. And she is attracted to him. She's not used to getting this type of feeling from her husband that's pictured above. She ends up cheating on her husband with him. At that point, she says that it was just a kiss and he had touched her breast some, but it excited her. Elsewhere, he then works on Bob. They go out for a ride where they go from talking about how Gail, Robert's wife, doesn't please Robert to then him later being aroused and asking Bob to help him. And you guys, guess what Bob did? He helped him. Instant hand job. What in the world is wrong with these people? It makes no sense to me. If he did this to you two, if he was able to have you as a husband help him release himself and her as a wife kiss him and be fondled by him, what in the world do you think he would be capable of having your little girl do? Because you allow your little girl to be around this man. But I guess they didn't think that that could be a level of perversion as well. So Robert would later admit in testimony that he did all of that, that he messed with the father and messed with the mother, also that he can have more access to Jan. 5 days pass when a call is finally made to the lead FBI special agent, Pete Welsh, and he is then placed in charge of this case. He goes to do an interview of the family, and the family is acting like this man is some like respectable man, that he did not kidnap their daughter, that he's just gone for a while. And he had to let them know, like, look, y'all, it's been 5 days. You have not heard from her. You have not seen her. He hasn't called you. He hasn't heard from you. His wife hasn't heard from him. Like, this is him taking her. So he goes to interview Gail and finds out that they have a motorhome and that motorhome is missing. Later on, as they're doing a search, they find Robert's car with a broken window and a lot of blood inside the vehicle, as well as tire tracks. So the agent doesn't know if something has happened, if she's been kidnapped, or if this is all a ruse from Robert. Because, yeah, we know that she's been kidnapped by him, but do we know if they've been kidnapped together? No. So multiple weeks pass. Agent P is still searching and investigating this man. He ends up finding out that Robert has always liked little girls, that even his siblings knew that he was inappropriate, that he was a ped. Y'all finishing the rest. Y'all know this is YouTube, so I gotta be careful of my words, because he used to touch his 6-year-old sister. Now, when his brother tells this story, it irritates me and it bothers me because he tries to diminish it by saying that it was a half sister. I don't care if she was related to him or not. The point is that he touched a little girl when he was much older than said little girl. And at some point, y'all were made aware of it. And what did you do? This has been a problem. It's been ongoing. So he's always been this way. This family allowed Robert to insert himself in so many ways, to the point where Jan at one point was sharing a room with her sister, this the largest room in the house on the bottom floor, and Robert suggests that they're older and they may want their own space. So what did he do as the man with the furniture store? He built a wall to divide their room, which all that did was give further access to Jan. Before she was kidnapped, Jan and her sisters used to sleep over at this man's house with his kids. And as a little girl, Jan remembered waking up while laying outside looking at the stars and finding him laying beside her with her underwear down. And his excuse was, "You must have taken them off. You were restless in your sleep." Another time in the summer of 1973, Jan was allowed to go on family vacation with them. And he came back lying on Jan, saying that she was saying strange things at the dinner table. So he took her back to a room, which later turns out to be a hotel room, where he had drugged her. And as a result of that, she had passed out. And she recalls waking up in that room, seeing him standing there naked. Why was this man given so much access to this girl? Why? So let's go back to the abduction. As I said, Jan is abducted and she finally wakes up and she finds herself restrained. She doesn't know this, but B didn't just take her, he took her to Mexico, drugged her, and began a campaign of psychological manipulation because he told Jan through this recording in this speaker that was set up in this motorhome that had this voice going on saying that this little girl was a half alien, that her mission, according to the so-called alien race, was to have a child with a man that would save the human race, and that man would be found where she was at. If she couldn't do it, then they would take her sister, Susan. So she felt like she had to do this. And she had to do it with the male companion that happened to be laying in that motorhome. He was bloody because he made himself bloody in that car, and he wanted to make this little girl feel like something had happened, and it was B. Now, she, of course, feels like she loves this man, that he's a father figure. So if anybody else that she would have to do this with, she would want it to be him. So he awakes and he tells her this crazy story about them being kidnapped and the aliens taking them. She was 12, he was 40 years old. And here's the terrifying part, you guys. She believed it. He slowly works his magic and does suggestive things, but she doesn't realize at the time what he's doing. She's given books that tell her how to have relations. He begins to assault her And she does not even realize that's what's being done, because for her, he's just putting an inch of himself in, when she doesn't realize that that is a violation and that he shouldn't be doing it. She copes with what is going on by looking at the leaves on the trees in the window above the motorhome. In late November, Robert contacts his brother, tells his brother that the only way he'll come back is if Jan's parents allow him to get married to Jan. Now, he relays that message. Marianne's like, of course not. There's no way we're going to allow that to happen. The brother then alerts authorities, and it goes from there. After 39 days, the FBI finds him in Mexico. B is arrested, but made sure before Jan leaves to tell Jan what to say, which is that they were on vacation. She wasn't allowed to talk about the mission that they had to do, the aliens, or the pills, that she cannot talk to her father or her sister. If she talks to her father, then what will happen more than likely is her sister will go blind or her father will be taken. Either way, something bad is going to happen to the members of her family. Now, she, of course, believes him. What else is she supposed to think? Because here you are and you're telling me that something is going to happen when some bad things have already been happening to me in this motorhome. So Jan is finally brought home, but her mind is still under his control. She would not speak badly about him. She stuck up for him. She lied for him. She did not sit by or embrace her father. She did not interact the same way with him. She still played with her sisters, but there was a difference in that as well. She actually believed that she was in love with Robert. She even believed that the alien mission was not over. He had her completely brainwashed. Completely brainwashed. And here's where the story gets more bizarre. Despite the abduction, the family does not listen to the FBI. They were told, do not talk to Gail. Do not have interactions with her. Don't allow your kids to have interactions with that family at all. Gail comes over. They talk to her. She asks them not to press charges. Why? Because B threatens to expose Bob's indiscretions. For me, that would be an oh well situation. The church would have to condemn me and people would have to talk about me. When it comes to my kid is going to come before me. I'm trying to be a little bit compassionate here and remember that this was the 70s and people weren't as open minded about people who were homosexual or who may have done, because he's not claiming to be that now, or may have done certain acts. I'm also trying to remember that he was a Mormon, so there's a lot of judgment there. But all of that to me goes away when it comes to my kids. Y'all tell me what you think down below. So they wrote this whole thing saying that they had consent to Robert, aka B, taking her. The FBI is stunned by the family's reluctance to cooperate. The trial ends up getting postponed because of that. They basically sink the case. So Robert eventually makes his way back into the community because, as usual, unfortunately, a lot of these people are so charming that they get away with it. So he's going to church and he's working and he's still working on Jan. He even comes in the middle of the night to talk to her. He's getting notes to her while she's at school, love letters from this grown man, all under the guise of this so-called mission. She's telling her mom she misses B and she wants to marry B and she wants to have his kids. And still knowing this, Marianne doesn't do anything. So fast forward to spring of 1975, B is working on Mary Ann again, and her dumb tail is falling for it. I'm sorry, I gotta call it like I see it. because he's calling her every day, talking about how he loves her and how he wants her. And knowing what she knows, her concern to him is, her question to him is, why did you marry my daughter, Jan? Because supposedly in Mexico, they got married, which it's not legal here, but there in Mexico at that time, it was legal to marry a 12-year-old, according to them. So she's having these conversations with the man that took her child, with the man that threatened to expose her husband. And she's talking to him on the phone. And he says to her, I want to explain everything. I just need you to meet me at my motorhome. So you know what she goes and does? She goes and meets him. She tries to act like she's not a victim. She tries to act like a victim, I should say, in this, but I'm not going to allow that to go down because you took my daughter. I wouldn't be so friendly with you. There is no way that this man would have taken my child and he would be able to tell me anything. So he's talking to her, telling her things and getting her to getting in her psyche and saying you should get a divorce, and he's touching her and he's stroking her leg, and y'all know what ends up happening? They end up having sex. You heard me. They end up having sex. This is the man that assaulted your child. This is the man that has taken your child and kidnapped your child and spent time with your child doing things that he should not be doing. This is the man that does things to your husband. You are aware of it and you have relations with him, knowing all of that. 5 days later, Robert calls Bob, calls the daddy. You know, he's gonna let the daddy know, like, look, I got something to tell you. I slept with your wife. And you know what she kept doing? She kept sleeping with him for 8 daggone months. But once again, it wasn't about the mom, because that's not, what he cares about. It was about Jan. Because every time he got to see the mom, he got to see Jan, to the point where he spent 2 nights alone with her on 2 separate occasions. How does that even happen? He took your daughter. How does that happen? So Bob goes to see his bishop, has a talk with them, trying to figure out what in the world he should do because this is getting out of hand. He doesn't know what to do about his wife in this situation. And the bishop's like, you got to put your foot down because she's not, she's not in good standing. Basically, she's doing stuff she is not supposed to do. So he decides to file for a divorce because he can't keep having this happen. He can't keep exposing his kids, and she has to leave the home. Now, while that is going on, Robert is still getting or trying to get in between the middle of them. He is calling and saying things to her and uh doing things, and Bob goes to see an attorney, and the attorney tells him, like, look, you're going to do what you're going to do. So she, Marianne, feels away. She doesn't want to lose her husband. She doesn't want to lose her kids. She doesn't want to be separated. She supposedly loves her husband. So she goes to see an attorney and she's like, what do I have to do? Because of course, Robert told her to go and see the attorney, tell him that your husband is a homosexual, and then no judge is going to let him get the kids. You'll automatically get the kids. But she didn't want to do that, and she didn't believe that. So when she goes to see the attorney and tells all the things that's going on, the attorney tells her that what has to happen, what she needs to do is he needs to get out of her life. She needs to cut the cancer out, which is Robert. So she goes home, tells her husband, I want my family, and they end up staying together. So we go to June, what? I think 1976. I think it was June 20th, 1976, 20 months after the kidnapping. He pleads guilty. He gets 5 years, but he only has to serve 45 days. He kidnapped this little girl, and all they made him serve was 45 days, even though he was found guilty of kidnapping a child. After he gets out, he goes on to move and buy a family fun center. He was guilty of kidnapping a child, but y'all let him be at a family fun center. How in the world does this happen? So, you know what happens? Jan wants to work for him. And you know what else happens? Because they don't like the opposition and Jan is being defiant and she's demanding that she goes. The mom sends her to him. She's there for 2 weeks. It's now 1976. She's either 13 or 14 years old, and she comes back home and she has a major attitude. After a period of separation in August of 1976, B is back and he takes her again. And she leaves a note acting like B has nothing to do with her departure. The family doesn't say anything again. They didn't learn anything from the first time with the 5 days. And this time she's gone for 2 weeks before they call the FBI. He ends up getting picked up. He's jailed for a few days. They can't prove anything and he's released. And the whole entire time, while they can't find their daughter, this man is crying and calling Marianne, the mom, to talk about how much he misses this little girl. This time, she disappears for more than 3 months. He gets watched by the FBI. They see him one day making a call at a payphone. Turns out, after they did some research and called back the number, that he enrolled Jan in a Catholic girls' school in California under a fake name and convinced the nuns that he was her father and that her name is altered because he's a CIA agent. And if anybody calls, make sure you don't tell nothing about her identity. As her parents don't know where she is, he still has access to her and he's visiting her on the weekends. Then one day, after all this time has passed, he is finally arrested. Jan is taken home and she walks in the house and she goes straight to her room. She doesn't even speak to her mother. She is a shell of who she used to be. She is distant from everyone this time, not just her father, but everyone. And it remains that way for a short time. Then in January 1977, in the middle of the night, Bob gets a phone call and it's one of his workers letting him know that his florist shop is set on fire. They go to the place, mom and kids, and as the fire is burning, Jan recalls her father saying, "Let it burn because everything that I have that matters is in my arms." Jan, of course, feels like it's her fault. It is later found out that two guys did this thinking that they were going to be paid $1,000 a month for doing it, but they could not prove that Robert is the one who hired them. Robert is charged, gets away with a lot of it. He gets ordered to go to a mental facility in June of 1977. And when I say he's charged, I mean with the kidnapping and all that stuff, but all of it, most of it gets dropped because they figure out something's wrong with him. So he's there for 6 months. He should have been put away forever as far as I'm concerned. He later gives an excuse for why this happened and all the things that happened to him, but I'm not mentioning it. If you want to see it, watch the documentary. But I'm tired of people acting like because they went through certain things as kids, that that's an excuse for them to then become predators themselves. So Jan finally starts to break free of B's control as she gets older. At one point, she remembers being 15 and away at camp, soon turning 16, and she ended up liking a boy. But the trauma was so deep that she was afraid something would happen because of her interest in him. So she turns 16, and none of what she thought would happen to her happens. She ends up telling her sister what she was told, and her sister tells her that she has to talk to her parents. She finally does, but she still doesn't go into much detail about it. All of this is going on, and Robert, who is free, is harassing them and doing things. The man is free when she finally tells her story. So we jump to many, many, many years later. I'm talking about decades later, and B is still continuing to stalk the family. He's still showing up to stalk her. He even tried to ruin Jan's career years later when she's speaking out. And it is not until Jan is well into adulthood that she fully confronts the extent of what happened to her. She had to end up filing a stalking injunction against him, and he gets to question her in said court. She's granted protection for life. He ends up showing up at an event where she's at with a firearm in possession, and he gets questioned, he gets arrested, he is found guilty of having those firearms because he shouldn't have them since he, is who he is. And he's allowed to go home before sentencing. And his brother says that he always said he would not spend one day in jail. So what he does is he takes a whole bunch of medicine and alcohol and he unalives himself. Jan became an advocate for child abuse awareness and even co-wrote a book with her mother called Stolen Innocence, which later becomes the basis for this documentary. She says 6 women reached out and said that they were also assaulted by him. One was raped and he was found guilty of that, and all he got for raping that one when she was a little girl was a year. 1 year. And this is the problem, because why did this person only get 1 year in doing what they did? Abducted in Plain Sight dropped on Netflix in 2017 and it blew up online. Viewers were stunned not just by B's crimes, but by how easily he infiltrated this family. People, myself included, could not believe the parents' choices, B's boldness, and how the system failed Jan, because that's what this really is about. It's how the system and her parents, I'm going to add that, failed Jan. But Jan has said that this documentary is about more than blame. It's about understanding how grooming works, how predators exploit trust, and how silence can cost lives. It's about forgiveness of her parents. So, what can we take away from Abducted in Plain Sight? This documentary, in my opinion, was hard to watch, but it was a necessary watch because it forces us to ask uncomfortable questions about trust, manipulation, and the power of denial. You have to learn to trust your gut when it's telling you that something is wrong. I rather falsely worry about my child and feel like, oh, I need to question this and oh, I need to question that, than put my child directly in harm's way because I ignored what my gut was trying to tell me. Jan's courage to tell her story gives us a roadmap to prevent these crimes in the future by recognizing red flags early and not staying silent when we see them, and by not being foolish or naive like her parents. If you made it this far, thank you. Please like and share and subscribe for more of these. Thank you, Neolithic, for recommending this. I had watched it before, but I kind of like, if I remember, I was falling asleep. So it was nice to revisit it. And let me know in the comment section what shocked you most about this story. Thank you guys so much. And I'll see you for the next one. Until next time.